What's happening, good people? I'm tell me how well I sound because I'm trying a new microphone placement. I can kind of see I'm experiencing a little bit of a delay on my screen, but hopefully it'll catch up soon. What's up, off grid solar smart house sleeper? What's happening? Uh, I gave enough advance notice today. I know it's our lunchtime live, so the crowd is not going to be as whatever, but that's fine. I had a day off today. I figured I'd come hang out with you guys for a little bit. Oh man, is it low or is it audio's good? It looks synced. Thanks, sir. I appreciate that. Man, you didn't take no time like making your video. That was cool to see that. I may cut this portion out of the video when the video goes live because I want it to be a little bit tighter. But what I wanted to talk about today and kind of get you guys input on as well is, would you do anything differently if you started in solar today? My particular journey is documented in a video that I made on my channel. It's called Why I Got Into Solar. After the video's over, I'll toss a card up here so you can check that out if you're interested. I was really thinking about this, and I don't know how different it would be, but I'm curious about what you guys would do. So my situation, kind of just a brief thing. I started out with a 20 watt, a 50 watt Renogy solar panel that I still have and don't use today. It cost me $20. I had been watching, Hobotech, Will Prouse, and many other like niches to find information about solar because I was trying to learn, right? And I had been looking at solar panels, just casually kind of seeing what was out there, but I hadn't decided even on a power station yet. So I saw this guy was selling a 50 watt energy panel used for $20. I was like, man, I gotta go get that. It was in the height of when the pandemic had just started. So it's still some uncertainty, but I couldn't pass up that opportunity for a dub. So I went and I grabbed that dip, and that kind of like pushed me into really needing to decide what kind of power station I was going to get. Now, back then, coins was very limited. We did not have money was tight. So I was looking at the next pile, this kind of like had a handle on it. It was about $100, $110. I was going to get that one just to have something that will run my computer so that I could edit, and maybe we could watch a little TV, but mainly to keep my computer situation going with my monitor or whatever. It's like 150 watt hour, 160 watt hour device. But then Hobotech did a review on the Bodens, which was the first LifePo device that had came out. So, it had like a crazy amount of charge cycles. I planned to hammer my power station. I was going to use it every day, day in and day out. If the sun was out, I was going to be using it. So he did that video, and I was like, I'm sold on that one. And it was like, man, I talked with the missus. I was like, man, I want to be able to get this. And I grabbed it. And that's kind of how my whole journey started. But I wanted to see about not necessarily that particular era, but when I got to the point where I wanted to spend like some decent money on a power station, because my next power station was the OG Rock Pals, and it was the one that I don't know how to explain it. It was like one of the first power stations, and I got one of those refurbished. So it was typically going for maybe about 250, and the refurbished one was like 150 or 160 or something like that. So I grabbed that one because Will Prouse's OG video about micro generators, he kind of praised that one for being one of the ones that got the most solar into it. I think it could take in about like 80 watts of solar. Jackery, the big dog during that time, I think they was taking in like 45. It's bananas that's a thing. So that's kind of what pushed me in that direction. And then after that, the EcoFlow River went on sale for $280. I was intrigued by the EcoFlow River, the R600, which was the if you got the Pro, it was LifePo, and that thing was deeply discounted on their Kickstarter, as a lot of EcoFlow devices are. But when it dropped to 280, I kind of felt myself being like, man, for the capability that that thing provided, I was really intrigued, and I decided to spend the $280 on it because you couldn't get 600-watt inverter, the ability to take in 200 watts of solar, the UPS mode, the application function, the nice display screen, the boost up to 1200 watts of solar, which was like in a pinch. I would never use that in a normal day, but in a pinch, if you needed to, under certain circumstances, you could use it. I mean, the thing was just super capable for $280. It was super capable for $300, but again, I ain't have money all like that. But when it dropped to 280, I was like, oh man, dang. So I grabbed one of those. And interestingly enough, I don't know if the landscape has changed much. Do you guys feel like it's changed much? I don't know that I would be making too many different decisions, but I want to see what y'all are snapping and trapping about. What's up, former Marshall Delgado? Lee Saint, good to see you. Regional Sky Girl, what's happening? Good to see you. Indiana Jackson, always good to see you, man. Gardening with Eve, hey, what's going on? How are you doing? How is everything going? Have you had a chance to mess around with the Mylan? How is it treating you? It's a super interesting device, like super capable. It was weird to say that I actually spent money on it. So would you guys, let's say this, would your first purchase be different? Tell me what your first device was, power station that you purchased, and would you purchase something else, either back then or now? What's going on, boss? Stop the BS, please. That's quite a name. I like that. I'm not one for profanity, but I get it. Oh, that could apply. Hey, Siobhan, I missed your name up there. Brother Dwayne, good to see you, man. How you doing down there? Are you down in the city, or are you somewhere kind of moving and shaking? Came to win. My man, what's up, my guy? Good to see you guys, man. So realistically, today, if I was a person just kind of first starting out, um, interestingly enough, that EcoFlow River, the base model, is still a contender. I think that thing has been as cheap as $199, and it's pretty much always dipping to 250. It's still something to consider. Now, the EV3A, which I consider to be the king of the hill right now, sadly, that watt-hour capacity, it just sucks. It sucks so much. Mentioned before, I just kind of look at it as a 200 watt-hour device. It's like the 260, and that's a little unfair to it because on paper it's 268 or whatever. But realistically, through the AC, you're gonna get about 210. At least that's what I've seen. So it's a 200 watt-hour device, but it's basically the EcoFlow River in every aspect of the way with LiFePO, with a few less watt hours. If I was buying a power station today, especially when it was on sale for 210, I would buy that one hands down. If I was ever in the market, for a device right now, that would be the one I would grab first. 8.5 amp input limit is not great, but throughout the last 2 years of owning the EB70, which is essentially they're all the same device, give or take. The EB70, the EB55 has an XT60 connector. The EB3A has an 8mm connector. What? You know what? Thank you, baby. Can you give me some water? Thank you very much. They're pretty much the same devices. And when I tell you I have 200 watt panels or 200-ish watt panels on both of them, the EB70 and the EcoFlow, when I had them set up that way, they pretty much saw the same amount of power. If one was at 144, the other one was at like 145. If one's at like 126, the other one's at like 127. Now, I'm in PA. I don't see very high solar output at my settings. Even if I bother, thank you. Even if I mess around with trying to do the can trick and all that jazz, my son, I guess with the haze is just not great. And I've heard from some other people that's kind of what they see. They see very similar solar output on their panels. You see what y'all snapping and trapping about. Oh, you in the city? I just talked to my dad um, about a week ago. He had said someone in our old neighborhood had gotten shot. Like it was a bad situation, man. He got shot like 7 times, right around the corner from where my dad lives. My dad still lives in our like OG house too. So that was crazy. Just wild times in the city. It feels like. My first power station was the EcoFlow River Pro. Hey man, you winning out here in these streets. Did you get it from Costco or did you buy like straight up from somewhere? What's up, TRW? I'm just starting out. My first one is the EV3A. That one's solid. I mean, it has some issues. It's a new device. Bluetti is a reputable company. A lot of people say that support sucks. So keep that in mind. You know, some people say the support is slow, but it's whatever. So there's been some kinks. The display on that dip is like really inaccurate on AC. I still haven't kind of tested it the way that I want to, but it's a solid device, man. Especially if you got it for 210. 250, it's like within reason, that's still fair because a lot of us got that Energizer P320 for 250. I mean, technology moves and all that jazz. So it's a much more capable device. It's just a less watt hour, whatever device. What would I improve on that dip? I don't know. I do know that I need 2 USB-C ports. Even like a 100 and a 60 is fine. A 118 is not going to cut it for me, but a 160 would be cool. 2 100s. That EB70 is right here, right now, next to my desk, and I don't think it's going to move because it has 2 USB-C ports. Unless I get something that's bigger with 2 USB-C ports. I don't even need it to be too big because I have the Ace Volt and the Alcatel, and they both have 2 100-watt ports on them. But they have beastier panel setups on them. So I'm not going to move them up here to a 200. Let's see. My first was the EB70, but I think I might have gone with the 200, the Bluetti ACP, the AC200P. Is that what you mean? I don't know that I would go bigger. Because if I went bigger, I don't know. I'm not balling out of control, so I can't imagine dropping 1,500, 1,600 on a device just under my current circumstances. I don't see that really happening, but I do kind of believe that you should save up for what you want. If you absolutely know that in your particular situation you need a AC200 Max or AC200P because your power's out all the time and the amount of load that you're gonna put on it and what's important to you. Maybe you have a couple deep freezers or whatever. I don't know. I do advise people to save up for what they want because getting power from the sun is very addictive. And 9 times out of 10, you will want to keep purchasing devices. You may not buy as many as a lot of people buy, but you will want to gradually kind of update your thing. Which reminds me to speak to this idea of building my own. I still don't think I would build my own. I don't think I would do it. Cause just like I don't necessarily have the space that's conducive to that. I have small kids. I don't know if I could have something. Plus, I don't like building anything. I'd rather use my time to do other things than to sit out there and be constructing something. But that's just me. I'm not wired that way. I'd much rather pay somebody because I can't necessarily um, give those resources, those coins to somebody to build. Then I just wouldn't do it. I'd just buy something that's pre-made. And also looking at a lot of situations, the prices are very comparable. The prices have been comparable for a while. other than like maybe like 18, 24 months ago, where you could build something than a lot cheaper. Well, let's just say cheaper and more capable than the power stations that were out now. I don't know where that stands now. Maybe I'll talk about that a little bit in one of my other lives where I've kind of thought about it and looked at the prices and things like that. Yes, I had still getting annoyed. My first purchase was the EcoFlow River. I actually still like it. I dig it. I listen. I packed up my EcoFlow River Max battery. I bought the EcoFlow River first, and then I bought the separate battery. It was on sale, and also coins from the community helped me to kind of be okay with that. Um, but it never delivered the power. It's like it never gave me 500 watt hours of power, which is why my zone one, which is where my TV and my internet is always a struggle. And it's back to being a struggle now, but at least I'm not deceived about my capacity and my capability. Right now, zone one TV and internet has the EB3A, just kind of like pulling in solar. I don't plug anything into that because the watt hour capacity is too small to have anything plugged into it for extended time. So what I do is I have my internet plugged into my Energizer, and my TV is plugged into. It could be plugged into anything. A GoLabs R300. I don't use the Jackery much over there anymore, but it could be plugged into anything. It could actually even be plugged into the wall because I don't want to deal with because it uses about 40 watts. Sometimes I plug the TV into the EB3A, but my TV just turned off on my kids a minute ago. So even with that dip getting 140 watts of power in, it was feeding 100 into the Energizer and it was using 60. I did not expect it to go off so soon, but it did. It was also kind of low on power. So, it is what it is. But I just, that zone for me is really hard to manage. I was trying to figure out a power station that has around 200 watts of solar. Keep in mind that most 200 watt panels will put out about 160 watts in my experience. I feel like one time I saw my river with two Renogy 100 watts, it got like 181. That was the highest I got from that dip. Um, but for the most part, I'm at about one. What you doing? Before and after what? Oh, okay. I got you. I got you. You look like you were taking a picture of yourself backwards. It was weird. Like you wanted to just see your face or something like that. Let's see. Oh, the Go Power Plus was your first. You would do that again. Interesting. How much did you pay for it, Delgado? Because it was super cheap. I wanted to get one, even though I didn't need it, just for the culture. So, because you guys had some questions and stuff like that, and the person who suggested it didn't have the capacity to answer all those questions. I mean, he has a lot of subscribers, so I wanted to try and help out the community and all that jazz, but I couldn't find one. Our first purchase was a Flashfish 200 watts. I wouldn't have bought it because of the low power, but it has, but it has been nice for running fans, charging phones, and etc. when we hang out outside. Yeah, those small ones have some benefit, but if you're being like really intentional, it's like, get that small one out of here. I'm satisfied with my EB55. You want the EB3A? I think I'm stuck on Blue Eddy. I don't like change. Interesting. I ain't mad at that. They have LiPo in all the devices, so that's another reason to stick with them. I think I saw somebody made a post in one of the groups that EcoFlow has a LiPo joint now, like the Delta 2, which is interesting. I think it's like at around 1,000 watt hours. They don't have anything really, any real good offerings at $1,000, in my opinion. The big three is pretty much kind of absent there. EcoFlow has a couple devices in that space, but they're all lithium ion, or NMC or whatever. So it's like I ain't gonna spend $1,000 on something that's gonna give me 800 cycles. Nah, not me. My first purchase was An EB70S. I would buy it again. True. I dig that. Yeah, yeah, man. I was talking to my cousin. She had went down there maybe about like 6 months ago or something like that, and she was just saying how she enjoyed and loved the city, but she never quite felt safe. New Orleans is where I'm from, and that's what I'm talking about. And I was like, yeah, you weren't safe. Oh my gosh. I rather you don't want to relax too much in the city. For the most part, you be straight, but things can go to 10 real quick. Interesting. S230, but they sent me a $30 refund. What is a S230? That sounds familiar. What device is that? Seen a sale for I think 529 back then. Okay, I got you. Yeah, that's still good. I think that dip was like $600, 650 or something like that. The Go Power was $45 at the time. Yeah, that was a good scoop up. That was a real good scoop up. Yes, that's what I meant. Just would have spent the extra dollar in my situation. I gotcha. Yeah, it is. It's Off Grid Solar Smart House is a channel I didn't know the name of, but he's been mentioned a couple times on this channel because I think he was one of the first ones to make a transfer switch video. So he has a Blue Eddy product, I think like a Blue Eddy AC maybe 200 max and an extra battery. He can clear it up for me, but y'all go check his channel out. He's basically started to get his stuff off the grid. So he wants to power his home from solar. He had some issues with his electric company raising his rates, and he was just like kind of sitting down, doing the math, figuring it out, and he made it happen. So definitely go check his channel out, guys. Let's see. What's up, Equally Wrong? My first was the Mylan, which was absolute trash. Following several purchases and returns, I finally settled on the Boujar V 100 watt hour power station, happier than a mug. That's what's up. Yeah, that Mylan, man. You couldn't beat that price. It was like $250 at its cheapest. And I'll tell you something, that Mylan has always kind of been on sale. I remember one of my early viewers told me about the Mylan, and he emailed me and asked me if it was a good purchase. And I responded to him, and then he got mad with me because he felt like I didn't respond to him. He was like, "Yeah, you don't have time to respond to me." One of those kind of people who are annoying. Like, who feels entitled to somebody's time? Get a grip. But I actually responded to him twice because I had time back then. I still have time. What you chuckling at? True. But I think it was deeply discounted back then. But it turns out that dip is weird, and even for the money for me, it was still worth it. I think I spent like 250 on it. But I just knew because I don't like spending money on power stations. I mean, I buy certain stuff for the culture because I have a channel and all that jazz, but I didn't get into YouTube to buy power stations. I got into YouTube to talk about this stuff to help the community and to get people to send me stuff. That's not the only reason, but it's like, yeah, I mean, it's cool to get sent stuff. So I just knew that I wasn't going to use that power station as much. So I was just like, yeah, y'all could just give me my money back. They offered me half the first time. And then I asked for the rest of it because I knew it would just sit somewhere. Like I would force myself to use it. And because I like using my power stations, I didn't need to have something hanging around that I would just force myself to use because then that's my time and it's no longer fun. I'm just like making myself charge this dip up even though I don't want to use it. What's up, LVP? What's happening, man? I got your solar panel taped up. I'm a procrastinator, but I'm going to put Dell on it. Solar panels taped up, ready to go. I just need to print out your label so she can be able to make that move for me and then get that panel to you guys. LVP bruh, let's go. So can you tell me about the channel? If you don't want to talk about it here, shoot me a text, man. I'm curious about where you guys are. Are y'all getting back into the swing of things, or you just kind of doing things when you can? SK, what's happening, man? One of the OG viewers. if I knew what I know now. I bought the solar installation from the start rather than buying all the small projects leading up to it. Interesting. Can you expound on that a little bit? I know you have my understanding is that you have some stuff going on over there. So how would you spell it out for me a little bit? I would have waited for a 1500 watt hour solar generator. I dig it. I dig it. What's up, Tim? What do I think about the EcoFlow River Mini? That's that little small one without the handles. I don't like it. I don't like the price on it. I don't if it was LifePo, I could kind of get behind that. I had like a use case scenario that I was really compelled by for it. I was just like, man, that would be cool to have that form factor, but with LifePo batteries in it. Oh, you know what it was? I think I liked the aspect of how small it was, not necessarily because of the chemistry, the battery chemistry. I liked how small it was because of it not having a handle. I look at some of these power stations now and I wonder how small they would be if they didn't have a handle. Because that handle, I mean, it's cool, but it's just kind of wasted space. I did a live. I did a short recently. I'll link it up here for people who rewatched the video. I did a short recently comparing like the size of a bunch of my smaller 300-ish watt hour power stations and just looking at the handles, looking at the Go Labs versus the Jackery and those versus the Energizer. It's interesting how much space the handle takes up. Now, having a handle is great, but if you have multiple power stations, having multiple form factors gives you multiple options. So I just wondered about what they would be like if they didn't have these handles kind of just taking up space. Dun, dun, dun. It's safe here now. I'm inside. Hey, Kimber Jack, what's happening? Good to see you. First real power station was the EB70. First big battery, the Go Power Plus. I got you. So I went Bowden's 166 watt hour, Rock Pal's 280 watt hours, EcoFlow River 286 watt hours. And then I think the next one I bought was the EB70. And Blue Eddie worked with me on the EB70 because I had a YouTube channel. But I was gonna buy it anyway, so that worked out fine. They gave me like some dollars off of it, so that was cool. But it was like 700 watt hours for $500, two USB-C 100 watt ports. I don't think there's any real competition because that's a second tier, right? But if you wanted to spend like $500 to $600, there's nothing really in that zone right now other than the 55 and the EB70S. The Big Blue has its problems. It's like you can only get those cheaper ones that kind of come up to 500 watt hours. The Big Blue has problems. The Oops has problems. I don't know what else there is. Jackery is like a non-starter for me. I mean, I like the reliability of that Jackery 300. It has the best feature set out of all of the devices. It's a cool little device, but all the other devices are just like, nah. So I don't know what you do in that space of wanting to spend like $500 to $600. I mean, the I don't have one, but people really like the Babine or the FF Power 500 watt hour dip, and there's also Alcatel has one in that range. One thing I didn't like about them is they couldn't quite get up to 100 watts of solar, which is no big deal because your 100 watt panel is not going to put out that much solar anyway. So I'm kind of like, but I wish it had did like a straight up 100. But I don't think that their USB-C ports are bidirectional, which I've said before, bidirectional can be annoying when you're trying to couple them with power stations. But for everything else, it's actually really cool. That's the problem I have in my zone one because if I had, let's say that EcoFlow had a bidirectional port, that would be kind of perfect. Not perfect, close to perfect because it's not LiPo. But let's say it was LiPo and it had a bidirectional port. 500 watt hours, 200 watts of solar input. It could probably run my internet for 22 hours. That's what it should be. Realistically, even with the extended battery on it, I got about 12 hours. So it's giving me about half my capacity. That's why that dip is going back too. It is taped up and they're supposed to be giving me my money back. But if it could charge easily from anything, like just being able to power dump into it 100 watts from PD, that would have been dope, because I have all of these other, hey, get a grip. I'm sorry for yelling. I'm not sorry for y'all seeing that. I'm sorry for yelling if that got a little loud in your ears. So the fact that it can't charge easily, and the XT60 connector being something that takes a little oomph to disconnect, I kind of hated having to pull the panel out when the sun went down and hooking up that 12-volt adapter to it. Because one, I don't like 12-volt adapters anyway. I think that they suck. So to have the 12-volt adapter suck and the XT60 be kind of a pain to pull in and push out and all of that, whatever, the EcoFlow River Max is not really ideal for me in that zone. Well, if you got the kids, then get the kids then. So I'm not feeling like you got the kids. I know you got them, but I just they kind of kept going, and I needed to. So you don't have the kids. It's like I was gonna get the kids, but I ain't got them. Yeah, so it's complicated, and I don't think there's a device. I was kind of going to a space of, I think the Zendor 700 watt hour. It charges. It can do 160 watts of solar, which is fine, because remember, I only get like about 140 out of my 200 watt panels anyway, so that's cool. If it actually gets 160, because it could get 160 under like perfect conditions, and then I'm looking at like 120, like some of these other devices, like the Bullback can take in 160, but not from any of my panel configurations, at least at the moment. And I'm not into wasting power to over panel, because I have multiple devices. I could just split those panels up and have them give their real power to a device. I hope that makes sense. I can get into that a little bit, but it's diverting from my point. The Zendor, I believe, has USB-C in and out. And that's a game changer for me. That GoLabs R500 was going to be a good contender, kind of, because it can only charge from 100 watts. I need 200 watts. I need the ability to be easily charged from 12 volt, because then I could power dump. I have these batteries now. I could just throw I got one right here. Matter of fact, I could just throw a battery clamp on my external battery, pop a 100 watt adapter, 12 volt adapter in here, and then I could easily power dump from my battery into a power station if the power station can take it, which they can't. So at least the ones that I want to have in that zone. So I need about 500 to 700 watt hours, and that's me being modest. I feel like it would be great to have 1,000 watt hour device over there, or a 1,500. I have that EB120, but it can't even be charged over 12 volt. All right, let me see what y'all snapping and trapping about, because y'all know I'm a weirdo. All right. What's up, Leela Presti? Good to see you, man. Always good to see you. We're back for a stretch, 4 episodes coming in the next few weeks. Something nearly new every 2 weeks. I dig that. That's good. Well, Bruh Let's Go is one of my favorite like black people who like get out in the world and go on trips and stuff. I like their marital dynamic the most. That's my favorite part. Sir, did you do a video on a Gen solar panel from Amazon 100 watts? No, I don't think so. That don't even sound familiar. Slightly discouraged by the lack of subs and views, but oh well, can't stop, won't stop. You have to make content that people are looking for. Or you have to do collaborations with other people who have already garnered a following. That's a great way to get your subs and your views up, because you get introduced to new people. Yeah, you have to kind of think about how to. It's really about helping the viewer. Like a lot of times on YouTube, we make content selfishly. We make the content that we want to make. but you have to make content that serves a particular person or type of person. Uh, and that's how you get it. And after like you think about a good 3 or 4 videos somebody's watching, and they're just like, yeah, I kind of like them. Let me go ahead and subscribe. Because typically, unless the value is really high, you don't get that subscriber the first time. Solar Off Grid Garage. I've watched a couple of his videos, and I'm a little weird about subscribing in the first place, but it is what it is. You kind of people have to grow into wanting to subscribe you, or they have to see the value to their lives instantly, and then they hit subscribe. Let's see. Yeah, hit the like button because why not? Right. Hey, Sharon. Good to see you. Good afternoon, Three Blue Dragons. Blue Eddie, what? CS Juan? Sichuan? This winter, I will have to overpanel. That's interesting. Can you explain that to me? I'm not looking forward to winter. I'm gonna be honest. I was literally just talking with my wife about this today. Like, what am I gonna do with all these panels in the winter? The plan is I have a driveway. Let's say for the sake of talking, many of you guys are familiar with my setup. My panels kind of sit right here in my yard, right? But this side of my driveway has some trees in it, and I want to cut those trees down. We actually need to order an electric chainsaw. So if this side of my yard has the trees in it, the sun typically south facing, it's most of the time going to be like up here. So I would need those panels to kind of be sitting up on my fence so that winterly sun can hit them, which poses a problem for me. I have a video about it where I talk about like my 17 power stations. I talk about it in that video, but that's not what that video is about. I have to deal with like how long my cables are going to be and what I'm really going to do. I don't know. Hopefully by the time winter comes, I have a more substantial power station. I don't necessarily see that happening. I guess Vito Man was supposed to send me one, but who knows if that's going to pan out. I say that to say, like, let's say Blue Eddie sent me like an AC 200, even a 200p or 200 max. I will probably seriously entertain just having a static kind of panel setup where I try to put most of my panels into one device and then have that device kind of feed certain things. Because I don't know if I'll be able to run all these cables that I have. My solar input, I think during the winter is going to be a little limited, but I'll figure something out. I always do. I have much more panels now. I think I have like 11 solar panels. I was just kind of making some notes on that. I have one 320. I have three 190s, two 200s, one 180, and about four 100s. I have two Renogys, an HQST, yeah, and then I got a couple like flex panels, which I'm not gonna keep them out in the winter. I may like take and throw them out there on a sunny day on top of the snow, but I'm not gonna leave them out there in the elements. So that pretty much cuts those down. So I've gotten accustomed to getting a lot of solar throughout the summer that I'm not gonna be able to get. Hey Jojo, don't play on the curtain. I'm sorry, Saya, don't play on the curtains, man. I'm not gonna be able to get as much power, which is fine. You know what I mean? I'm okay with that. I don't necessarily need a ton of power, but I'm greedy with the sun. So if I could get it, I'm gonna get it. Hey, do it for the kids. You got this nailed down. What you mean? Thank you. I appreciate that. So you're gonna have to over panel. I don't know. We still get good sun for the most part in the winter here. It's not, I mean, it's very similar. You know what I mean? It's like I have sunny days. It's just cold out. Or there may be snow that got on the panel. But for the most part, the sun comes out and the snow on my panels, because I brushed them off a lot, it melts or whatever. So I still get power. Last winter was my first like real winter. I think with like solar and stuff like that. I had solar the previous winter, but back then I only had like the two HQSTs and I maybe had a Renogy. But now I have a bunch more panels, so I'm gonna have to deal with that. I wish this Ace Bolt and this Alcatel could take in more solar, because then I would have a solution off top. The interesting thing about my EB120 is that it can take in 500 watts of solar, just like the Ace Volt and the Alcatel, but it can take in up to like 65 volts. So I can put all three of my HUSD 190s in series and then give that dip like 150, 150, 300, almost 500 watts. So that could work, but it's going to get full so freaking fast because it's only 1200 watt hours. So I may force myself to have to use that one to start power dumping into other ones. And here's the rub with that 1000 watt inverter: it can't charge either my Ace Volt or my Alcatel because they're pretty much the same devices, and they need 1100 watts of solar. I mean, 1100 watts of power. And there's no way to tell them to take in the slower, like 700. I wish there was a way to do that, but there's not. So I had an idea. It's a very silly idea, but it could work. The EcoFlow River and now, subsequently, the EB3A had the ability to boost up to 1200 watts of solar output. That's ridiculous for me to have to do something like that, but it could work. So I could power dump into the EcoFlow set the Eco Boost or whatever on, and then I'm assuming it should be able to pump the 1100 watts that's necessary into the Ace Volt or the Alcatel. Now, here's the thing. I have to wonder if the Ace Volt or the Alcatel will care about the lower voltage, because that's how the EcoFlow and the EB3A accomplish that. They lower the voltage with the amps. I don't know if they boost the amps, but they lower the voltage and they cheat it. So instead of getting like 110 volts, you'll be getting like 80 or whatever it needs to do that 1100. I don't want to math right now, but so it's an interesting theory. I'm going to test it one day. I'll probably do it in a short or standalone video. Another thing I'm going to test, since I'm talking about testing. Wait, let me see what y'all talking about first. Please explain over panel further. Okay. Louisiana hiker. I was in a video. I was watching another video about the 2 power stations versus 1, and I mentioned your name, and I was like, "Oh, I haven't seen Louisiana hiker around here in a while." I bought the Vito Man, or the Volt Man. You really like it, well put together. They were telling me they may be something or another, but for some reason they didn't send it to me. I don't know if the reason they gave me, they made it up or not, but we'll see. I may actually follow up with them. Speaking of people I followed up with Big Blue. They say that they are gonna update the CP500, the Cell Power 500, and they'll send me one. I don't know if the dude was lying or not. We shall see. I did reach out to Oops to see if there was another power station that I could try. They haven't gotten back to me, which is cool. I also reached out to my contact at Blue Eddy, and it appears to be the same contact that I have always had, and she will not respond to my email. So I mentioned this before, so I feel like I wonder if we're on bad terms. Hold on, I'm sorry. I'm just watching my neighbor's house. Somebody's pulling up on this house. That does not look familiar, and I'm a good neighbor, so. All right, looks fine. Oh, man. Okay, you said that. I caught that. All right. So another thing I want to test, something that's interesting in the way of testing. I have this Samsung 24-inch TV. This is something that I wanted to. Okay. Let me kind of set this up a little bit. This is Samsung 24-inch TV. It takes a barrel connector right here. Where's the barrel connector? I think it's right here. It takes this size. I don't know if this is going to work, but it does fit. It goes right in there. A little snug. I'm a little scared. But this is the second time I've had these monitors. I have two of them. One of them takes a barrel connector. One of them takes an AC cord. So the one that takes the AC cord, whatever's changing the AC to DC, because a lot of these devices are DC. Bacon smells good. A lot of these devices that we have around our house are DC. So they change the AC to DC. This is what these little bricks do. They take AC and change it into DC. This is the plug for this TV. I had a 19-inch Samsung that I bought off of the marketplace, like 20, $40 or something like that. I actually broke it by testing on it. So I wasn't going to test on this one for a while. I was a little apprehensive because there are TVs that we use. But we just purchased a second TCL 32-inch in my kids' like gaming area, so they could have the same TV. It's an older model, but it's fine. So that frees up this one. And then I also have another Samsung 24-inch TV because I got them both from different people at very good deals. I think one was like 30, the other one was 20. So the 19-inch one I used a, what is it? I have these DC to DC male cables that come with a lot of like stuff. You may have a solar panel that comes with one or whatever. So you adapt that to whatever the device takes, and then you could power it off of DC. This worked off of my Bodens back then. I would take my Bodens, which had LiFePo batteries in it. It was not regulated, but even in its unregulated state, it stayed at about 13 point whatever volts until it got to like the last like 90% or 10%, the bottom 10%, and then it will fall off the cliff. So I would use that to power that TV, but then I got like creative and I wanted to try, I believe, USB-C. This is a USB-C to 5521 adapter. So you can plug a USB-C cable into it and then plug this into things that take 5525. I tried, I think, a power bank to see if the power bank would charge it. Why I did that, I don't know. I mean, it seemed like in theory it would work, but I think it broke it because it was probably trying to push like 20 volts into it, because USB-C PD can have various levels, but one of the levels is 20 volts at like 5 amps to get 60 watts or whatever the output is. So I broke a TV that way. I'm going to make a video about me doing it. I'll do that soon. I don't know if it could put out soon, but I'm going to record it soon. So I'm going to try to use 5521 to 5521 to this adapter to power my TV. And then I have nicer power stations now, so I'll be able to see exactly how much power it takes in. Whereas the Bodens, I never knew. I just assumed it was taking about 20 watts. Those TVs don't use a whole lot of power to begin with. Now, the interesting thing about this, which is what I'm gonna explore in the video, is the port on it says 14 volts. Somebody, if you're proficient in this, please let me know. I think I heard somewhere that I read somewhere because I was trying to find laptop adapters, and it was saying something to the effect of, don't quote me on this because I could be mixing it up. They were like, you can undervolt something, but you can't like underamp, or you can overvolt something, but you can't overamp it. So it was in regards to laptops. You know, laptops typically take about 19 volts. When your charger for your laptop dies, you have to go out and get a replacement charger. I was trying to find a replacement charger for my Lenovo Yoga 2 Pro, and I had to do some research on it, and I found something that kind of spoke to that a little bit. So the real question is going to be, is supplying 13.3, 13.4, 13.6 volts from a 5521 port to a 5521 cable to an adapter to this TV, if that'll damage the TV or not. The power plug itself is rated at 14 volts at 2.5 amps. Max watts is 35 watts. That TV does not use 35 watts, right? If my clamp meter probes could fit into it, I would test it. I don't know if they can, just to see how many volts is actually coming out of it. Because if 14 volts at 2.5 amps is 35 watts, that's the max power that it can output. Those TVs don't take that much power. So if you drop it down, something has to drop down. It's probably the amps, but maybe it's the volts and the amps. I hope that makes sense, because it makes sense to me. Oh man, I'm in UK. Yeah, I gotcha. Hey, Ab, I decided to go with the SP200, 499 plus tax. Why did you decide to go with the SP instead of the PV? Do you feel like you're going to be in situations? I mean, before the PV came out, that's all we had. But the SP is wired in series, so if any shade gets put on that panel at the corner or whatever, it's going to greatly reduce it. Whereas with the PV, if any shade got put on half of the panel and the other half is unshaded, it would still produce like half the power that it would output or something like that. So you let me know why you went SP. It could have been for the price because the PV is probably a little more expensive. So back to the idea of doing things differently. If you've been around for a while, you know at some point I was gonna buy the AC 200 Max on the Kickstarter price because it was only like $100 difference or $200 difference from the AC 200P. The AC 200P has dropped in price now. I think it's like $12.99, or at least when it went on sale, it was $12.99. That's kind of compelling. $1,300 versus what? I think the AC 200 Max is probably like 18 or something like that. Let me check. If I wanted to get a big one, I'd probably go with that one. But you have these new guys, the Ace Volts, the Alcatels. Grecel has one out there that's deeply discounted. There's another K1 that basically these are the power stations that are in the style of the Alcatel or the Ace Volt. There's kind of like two variants of it. The Alcatel looks one way, it has the storage bin. The Ace Volt is a little bit smaller, but it doesn't have the storage bin. Those things are LiFePo. We haven't really had much competition for Bluetti in the $1,500 space with a battery that was LiFePo. I mean, they're not out there, but now we do. So now I probably still would go with the Bluetti. I think because they can take in more solar. I think the AC 200P can take in 700, and the AC 200 Max I think can take in 900. Plus, you can get the DC optimizer to give it 500 more watts to each of them respectively. I think it's BlueettiPower.com. You know what else makes me think Bluetti's kind of like done with me a little bit? um, One of the guys that I did YouTube with for a while, just in terms of like he was doing stuff and I was doing stuff. He has less subscribers than me, and they still sending him stuff. So it's kind of like I could get the hint. I get the hint. Let's see. The AC 500. I'm looking at the web page, and AC 500 came up. I don't know how I feel about the AC 500. They took away 3 of the AC ports for that other stuff, and I don't know that I have personally a use for that. So, when I get a better grasp on its usefulness, I'll probably make a video about it or go live and talk about it. But for now, it's like, okay. I'm trying to see how much the AC 200 Max is by itself. AC 200P. It's like they're killing me with not having all of this stuff listed. EB55. Okay, well, the EB3A on their site is listed at 240. That's interesting. I'm glad I got it at 210, but 240 is all right. I mean, it's not the best watt per dollar, but because it has all those features in it, it's like, I get it. AC 200P is back to being $16.99, and the AC 200 Max is $18.99. So 1900 and 600. That was my dilemma. I've talked about it many times. There's some shortcomings with that AC 200P that I wasn't a fan of. Also, it had been out for a while, so if I was going to spend $1,600, it wouldn't have been on that. And then the Kickstarter price, I believe, for the 200 Max was probably like $1,700. So I was going to get the 200 Max, but it's just like it wasn't in the cards for me. There was like a spiritual component. My wife and I weren't on the same page, so I felt like that was God being like, "You need to relax, bro." Because I struggle with this idea of like, do I buy stuff? That's a lot of coins, so it was a real struggle. But do I buy stuff, or do I see if the company will send it to me in like 6 months? And typically, patience kind of wins out. If I could just be patient, then I do better in the situation. What's up, B3? B3, my man. B3 shared with me these Easels. that are really impressive. They're not like super whatever. I thought about grabbing two. I have since reconsidered because I wanted to get them for my 200-watt panels. But he was saying, in his opinion, you would need two. Let me find them. I'll pull them up and show you. Hey, Auntie Blessings. Good to see you. I see Cow Dog kind of sores around here somewhere. Good to see you too. Oh, the Donald says he would get the PV if it will work. Oh, that's a good point. So, what do what power station do you have? You got to be mindful of that voltage. That's a fair point. Let me see if I can find this stuff, this junk and stuff, real quick. Firefox. Oh, it's trying to update. Son of a blues player. I gotta stop saying son of a truck. My man, Mike, what's happening? I always doubt how I pronounce people's names, but I think it's Mike Briney. Let me know if it's Briney, please. But Mike had a video. I shared the video on the community tab. The community tab does not get a whole lot of reach. YouTube has not figured that out. Mike had a video that Blue Eddie did on him and how he uses their products. It was a really cool video. The only issue I had is it took them a while to even show him. I was just like, man, where's Mike at? So I was excited about that. Mike seems like a pretty solid guy. I've interacted with him on Facebook and stuff like that. So I was happy about that. And it got some nice views too. My man, I got it right. Okay, Firefox is over here updating. That's the only browser. Sheesh, it done changed pages on me. I only use Amazon and Firefox. I've talked about that before too. So, okay. Is this a private window? It is not. That's what I'm looking for. Control Shift P. I thought that was it. Amazon.com. I'm in the process of talking about if I would do things differently as it relates to solar. But B3 Outdoors came through and he shared these Easels with me, and they are really good for 100-watt panels. I just need to find them and then show them to you guys. I think there's a way I could look at my viewing history. Let's see, pick up where you left off, maybe? Yeah. Okay, there's two different ones. But these things are, man, they're so dope. He also sent me some pictures. If I could show those pictures, I will. But let's share. What do we have here? StreamYard. Share my screen. Okay. Let's choose a window this time. Just to keep it tight. Keep your game tight, Mike. No, let's do window. Let's do screen. All right. Here we go. These things they're just nice, man. I love stuff like this. I love it. Look at that. So he sent me a picture. He has the Renogy blackout panel. I never get it right. I think it's Black Division. He put cardboard on that Renogy. Let me show y'all what I mean when I say that. It's Renogy 100-watt flexible panel. It's crazy that this old one is 160 and the new one has been about 160 lately as well, or it's going up. So he basically has this on he put some cardboard on the back to firm it up, and then he has this stand right here. These easels, they can go up or they can just go out, and he has them out with the little leg. It's dope. It's dope. I'll put a link to it in the live after I get done. But I can drop a link to it now in the chat. Give me 2 seconds. Let's see here. This one and this one. One had one left, and then another one had like it didn't have a limitation on how many it was listing. But I think the one that didn't have a limitation on the one was not the one he shared, but it's the same style. If I could actually get this to come up, copy. Close that for now. I don't need that open. Nice. Gotta keep your education going. $18.99. Thanks for that, Sharon. Sharon be in the loop. But yeah, okay. Let's take it a step further. Let me see if I could show you the pictures that he sent me. Because just I was so smitten, man. I wanted to buy one because I think they would be perfect. But they're perfect for 100-watt panels. When I asked him his opinion, he was like, "Yeah, you probably would need to get two for a 200-watt panel." And I'm not gonna do that. That's just too involved. But for 100 watts, I don't particularly care for 100 watts, which reminds me of something I need to talk about. But I think I gotta log in and all of that. Jeez, oh Pete. I don't know. I never really given it any thought. Why? What's on your mind? They're typically about an hour because it's like I'm usually working, so I don't stick around for much longer than an hour. All right, let's see here if I can do this in a way that protects my man's identity. Oh, he sent me way more pictures than I thought. That's interesting. I didn't even see all of these. Um, I want to talk about it, what kind of panels I would buy differently, and what I would do differently with cables, maybe in a second once I get this out here. Just gotta figure this out. Jeez, I got a lot of stuff going on right now. All right, let's go with this one right here. And then we could kind of go through that. Okay, that'll work. I didn't even see all of these, bro. Dang, thanks for sending these. All right, I think I'm sharing the window, so let's bring this over here. Boom, dizzle, high kizzle. So check this out. Chocolate chip French toast? Yeah, I'll try it. Let's see if I can make it a little bigger. So look at that. I'm assuming that's a 100-watt panel. That's the little stand behind it. You can see how the arms can kind of be adjusted. It also looks like he has them sitting in the easel, which is interesting. I would probably just sit them on the ground, but if they fit right in the easel, why not? I would just be worried about the lip kind of covering it up a little bit, but I don't think it would. Yeah, I don't see anything here. It looks like there's just some two arms under it. If you can see, dang, can I? Yeah, these two little dips right here. All right, let's go through the rest of the pictures. That's the Renogy dip that he put on the cardboard, and that's how they fold up. This stuff is just incredible. What's going on, one in one? Good to see you. If it works, still love my Jackery 300 because it's still a beast, but not the battery. But not that battery that I didn't know a lot about. Interesting. Okay. So I put a link to these things in the joint. Appreciative to brother B3 sharing those because I thought that was a good find. I love stuff like that. I love it. So I have been learning a bit about, and actually I have to reread Armand Allen's comment a couple of times because I didn't completely understand it. But I don't know. I've been trying to figure out if wire gauge, no matter the length, will carry the amps. That's all I'm worried about, because they say the longer your cable gets, you can lose voltage. I don't understand it all, but I'm trying to, because 10 gauge cable, I have I have a couple 50-foot 10 gauge cables, excuse me, for my 320 watt Renogy panel and my two HQSTs in series, those panels. But I wonder if I needed 10 gauge, because this HQST joint shows that 10 gauge. Let me see if I can find it here. I got way too many Amazon joints open. HQST says their 12 gauge is rated up to 20 amps. If you're not running panels in parallel, but you're running them in series, then the amps stay the same. So my two HQST 190s, I can show you all this if you need to see it. Let's do that just for the visual aspect of things. My two panels are in series and the amps don't go up. So it's a 10 amp array, 40 volt, 10 amps. So if HQST is telling me that, let's add it back up here. If HQST is telling me that a 12 gauge cable can carry 20 amps, I would have been fine getting 12 gauge cable. I don't know if I would want 12 gauge cable at 50 foot, because I'm still learning. Once I know, I'll share it with y'all. But I don't mind voltage dropping a little bit. I'm not necessarily, I don't know that I care about that. I don't know. I don't know if, because the MPPT charge controller has to drop the voltage anyway. So I don't know. If anybody has any expertise on that, would a 50-foot 10 gauge cable carrying 40 volts at 10 amps, would it matter if it was a 50-foot 12 gauge cable carrying 40 volts at 10 amps? What would be impacted if I dropped the gauge of the cable from 10 to 12? For those of you who don't know, 10 is bigger. The smaller the numbers go down, the bigger the cable is. So 12 is smaller, 14 is smaller than that. You get it. I don't know. So I don't know if I would do 10 gauge. I don't know. I would love to have a situation where I was using 12 gauge cable, 50 foot. And then my panels, what I would do differently with panels is I would get 200 watts off the rip. Having 100 watt panels is not ideal for me where I am now. Now, keep in mind that my first beastie power station was the EcoFlow River, which could take in up to 200 watts. So I had two 100 watt Renogy panels from the gate. Once I got a 100 watt panel, actually, so what I had was I started off with an HQST because that was the most affordable. It was 100 watts for $80. Then I bought another one. One was parallel, one was mono. Parallel was cheaper. Parallel. Poly. One was poly, one was mono. Poly, whatever was cheaper back then. It was like a whole $20 or $10, $15 cheaper. And then the mono one went on sale, and it was like a $5 difference between the poly. And then I wanted to try the Renogy form factor just for the culture, and I started to like that form factor, so I ended up having two of those. I sold these to a local viewer, the two HQSTs, and I still have my two Renogys. One of them broke, but I replaced it with another one for $65. Then I eventually bought another HQST, which was more square and smaller, just because I was curious about that form factor as well. So I bought that one for me and for the culture. But if I was doing it over, I would just save up my money and get 200 watt panels. Keep in mind that if I had bought something like the EB120 first, then I would try and find used panels at a higher voltage. That would be my first step as well, because those panels used are a lot cheaper. Even sometimes newish, they're a lot cheaper than the $1 per watt in the kind of like consumer market. So would I use different cables? Maybe. I would definitely buy 200-watt panels. The only reason why I advise anyone to get 100-watt panels is if space is a concern for them, but they pretty much cost the same. They're going up, but I think that's some pandemic like economy type stuff going on right now. But typically, they're all $1 a watt. That Rich Solar 200-watt was 220 for the longest. It was on sale via Hobotech for a while for like 190 or something like that. That's why I got the Rich Solar first. And then the HQSTs, the 200s, they were like 170. They were like 190s, but they were like $170 initially. And then I think they went up. So I would get 200-watt panels from the door, off top. Don't hurt the artist. What's happening? Good to see you. Let's see what you only have to worry about the amps, not the voltage. The amps, once hot, creates resistance and will drop, not the voltage. Interesting. I have to read that again. You only have to worry about the amps, not the voltage. The amps, once hot, creates resistance and will drop. So the amps will drop. Okay, so let's think about this, Louisiana hiker. You got a 12 gauge cable. We know that on here it's saying 12 gauge can carry 20 amps. My array is 40 volts at 10 amps. Most panels are about 10 amps. They can get up to like 12 or something like that. So if a cable is rated for 20 amps, at what point would I run into voltage or amperage dropping because of resistance? Is that because of the length? Or would it be because I tried to push 12 amps, 10 amps through a 14 gauge cable? Like, do I encounter resistance just period? Or do I encounter resistance when I try to push more amps through a pipe that is only rated for so many amps? I'm trying to understand. I'll just leave this up. I bought 100-watt Renogy panels. I was listening to LED. That the logic is good. The logic was good because the thing was, I think LED's reasoning was that you could easily. His logic was that money wise, it was easy to go get a 100-watt panel, but I get that because it's easy to spend. It's easier to spend $100 than it is to spend $200. But once you bought 2 panels, you spent $200. So it's like the only thing that leads me to the 100-watt panels is the space. If you need something where a 200-watt panel is like too tall or too wide, and the two 100s will work out better in your space because you have more of a rectangle or square shape than a rectangle shape, narrow, then I get that. But if you have the space, I always say, if you have the space for the 200-watt panel, get the 200-watt panel. Because then with most of us having smaller power stations, you have to put those panels in parallel, which means you have to buy a wire. The wires are super cheap, but then you have to connect those. It's like, why deal with that? Why deal with series and all that jazz when you could just buy the 200-watt panel? Listen, I have 100-watt panels. It was easier to spend $100, $90, $93, $84, $86. But if I was doing it all over again, we live and we learn, I would get 200-watt panels. And if I was dealing with a bigger power station that could take in more voltage, I would be looking at bigger home panels, used or new, because they were cheaper per watt. Brother Bean, what's happening? All right, let's see. I never use the AC ports on my batteries. Why not? Just for efficiency sake, one in. Simple solutions are great. They're even better when you already got that stuff laying around. I love that. I love using what I have. Let's see. All I want is to see going into my power station is high wattage. I gotcha. Okay. Let's see. I've not seen anyone talk about realistically how much power is lost from a long run. I need to hook connectors on a 500. I didn't pay attention in school. Is it 500-foot spool? And see what the wattage drop is. Yeah, I kind of want to play around with that too, but sun is too important for me to stop the show for something like that. As I get more stuff, then I can kind of like play around a little bit more. Yeah, all I know is that volts are easier to send for longer distances over thinner cable, and amps are harder. I don't know what the implication is, the other way around in terms of like, does a long cable run impact amps or not? I would love to have the answer to that because, yeah, I wouldn't have to buy 10 gauge cables. This 10 gauge cable, it says, is rated for 30 amps. No solar setup in a home situation with most people is gonna need 30 amps. Because if you're pushing 30 amps through anything, then you start to need fuses and stuff like that. And I feel like keeping solar simple, I ain't messing around with no fuses. I'm nah. I feel like you're using these kind of at-home systems. Most of the devices don't even go past 15 amps. Even some of the bigger ones. I think the Delta Pro, they're like granddaddy. The max is like 12 amps. It's like, why you need a 10 gauge cable? I don't understand it. I would love to understand it. And when I understand it, I'll share with y'all. And hopefully I'm right. Okay. Both. Anything over 50 feet, you want to go bigger. That's why people put panels in series instead of parallel. I'm still not able to connect the dots. That NEC rating of 20 amp is a bit of an arbitrary number. It's a sliding scale where the more current you push across a wire, the more that is lost in heat. Interesting. NEC determined 12 gauge is a good place. I guess my thing is, if a wire is rated for 20 amps, my panel array is rated for 10 amps. But realistically, the sun power coming through there is only going to give you 8 amps. Then what are we really talking about? What am I trying to figure out here? I'm trying to understand realistically, the power coming through those panels is going to be 8 amps. That's why, just to connect some dots, that's why when I talked about my EcoFlow River and my EB70, both getting the same amount of power, even though the EB70 had the 8 amp limit, I was only getting about 8 amps from my panels in the first place. That's the two Renogys in parallel. Parallel doubles the amps of the panel, but the panels do not pull out the full power. You know what I mean? So it's just like, especially in amps, I'm deducing here. So I would typically be getting about 8 amps from the panel array anyway. And then think about the fact that when I bought the HQSTs and the Rich Solars, I wanted to go with the higher voltage anyway, because the EB70 being my beastier machine for the longest, I didn't want to be throwing away amps. So I didn't want to get a 17 volt, 12 amp panel because I knew off top 4 of those amps is going to be thrown away. Now, realistically, a 17 volt, 12 amp panel would have probably only put out like 10 amps, 9 point something amps, maybe. So it's like, it wasn't that big of a loss to begin with. But considering that my Rich Solars and my HQSTs have higher voltage, lower amperage, they typically sit at about 20, 21 volts, and then about 9.78, 9.8 amps. So if this cable is rated for 20 amps, how am I losing when realistically 8 amps is what's going to come through it in the first place? Again, because the EcoFlow and the EB70 only get about 170, 140 watts to begin with. If you do the math on that, I don't know what it is, but it will equate to something like 8 amps times 16 volts or whatever equals 142. Let's do some math real quick. I don't always know how to do this math the first time, but we're going to figure it out. So 142 watts divided by 8 amps equals 17.75. That's the volts. So 17.75 volts times 8 amps is 142 watts. I'm going to stop there before I start confusing myself and people. Hey, Cat Eyes, what's happening? Okay, to draw the line, that's how I understand it. So that's related to this video. So 12 gauge is a good place to draw the line. That's how he understands it. Okay, I got you. Ignore the word. Yeah, I got you. What's up, brother Franklin? Ike Man is on the live, babe. You heard me? Ike Man is on the live. That's my little bro. Non-biological, but family nonetheless. All the same, something like that. I'm just here because I bees the block. Oh man. Okay, so when I get a larger power station, I should get higher watt panels. If you here's the thing: if you get a larger power station, you can use what you have. That's another reason why I had an issue with that AC 200p, because that one you have to get larger panels or you have to put your panels in series, because the voltage range was 36 or something like that. It had to be like 30 or whatever. And a 12-volt panel, which typically sits at about 17, 19, 21, did not meet the threshold for the AC 200p. That AC 200 max, you could put a single 12-volt panel on it. Think about the fact that I have multiple 12-volt panels. The only panel that I have that is a higher voltage is that Renogy 320. So when I had the Rich Solar 200 and a couple HQSDs, and I wanted to put one panel on a device, I could not put that one panel on the AC 200p because it needed a higher voltage. Now, if I had the AC 200p, I could just throw two HQSDs in series, fine. I could throw my Renogy 320 on that, which is 36 volts, fine. But that was a drawback to that. So if you got a larger power station and you have two 100-watt panels, you just put those panels in series. Series combines the voltage, leaves the amps the same. So if you put two panels in series, two 100 watts, you're going to end up with a 40-volt, 5-amp array, right? 40 volts because the combined series combines the voltage, and then 5 amps because the amps stay the same. So if you got a larger power station, typically that power station can take a single panel as well. So it's just up to you. You could put three Renogy 100-watt panels in series, and then that'll be 60 volts. But you have to make sure that that power station can take in more than 60 volts. The EcoFlows of the world, for the most part, the newer ones and the Bluettis of the world, they go up to like 145 volts or something like that. So you got a lot of room to play around with. But it's the amps. They typically max out those amps at like about 12 to 15. Oh, my man, Armand Allen is here. The NEC, which is the National Electric Code, has tables in it to show what the resistance in ohms per foot per wire gauge size is. You can see what the voltage drop will be by using some math, and math is not my strong suit. I've tried to read some of those tables, and it's just like, it's a bit much. What's up, Dennis? Been a minute. Look at you getting, I know, right? It's like that episode of Fresh Prince where they go to Philly and the dude's like, I've been reading. All right. Renogy has a solar cable calculator. Ooh, that's quite the resource. Let me see if I can find that. That would be dope. Renogy solar. There you go. My man B3 coming through twice in 36 hours. Crushing it. Interesting. This looks involved, but it looks promising. Renogy.com/calculators. Enjoy. I push 20 amps across a 12 gauge wire for 50 feet. The wire itself gets warm to the touch all the way to the charge controller, and that's because of the resistance inside the wire itself. Ooh, okay, you push 20 amps. Okay, so let's deal with that a little bit. Let's go back here. 20 amps. Let's bring our trusty screen back up. Let me see if I could do better than that. Okay, that'll work. So I push 20 amps across a 12 gauge cable wire for 50 feet. The wire itself gets warm to the touch all the way to the charge controller, and that's because of the resistance inside the wire. That is very interesting. You guys can see here, 12 gauge cable is rated for 20 amps. So it's not getting hot, but it's feeling it. It's feeling it. That is interesting. Thanks for sharing that example, Louisiana hiker. Very intriguing. So with me doing my little measly 10 amps, I feel like I should be fine. Maybe I'll buy a 12 gauge 50-foot cable and just test it. They're not cheap. I don't even know if they exist, to be honest with you. Let's see. I've been trying to find, let's see, 50-foot 12 AWG. Oh, that's an extension cord. I don't want that. MC4 cable. You know, Bouge RV sent me the kit. So if I needed to buy like just some wires from Home Depot and like a stripper and all of that jazz, I could make these cables myself now. I haven't learned how to do that, but I'm getting close. I literally pulled my HQSD panel. I put it up against the wall so that the wires are facing me. So I'm kind of getting ready. I only have to replace one. So it should be easy enough to do that because I don't have to figure out what is what. So I know I have a male over here and I'm missing a female. I already know I need a female from the kit. Put it on there. The wire's already stripped. I just pop it on there, clamp it down, and then I should be able to assemble the connector around it. That should work just fine. And I'm getting there, but I haven't endeavored to do it. I may mess around with it today, but I may not. So you look at this, right? Let's add it back. We got, it's 100-foot. This is what I put in 50. I didn't put in feet. 12 gauge MC4 cable. So this one is 10 gauge. Then you got 12 gauge, nothing on it. What do you have? 10 or 12 gauge wire connectors. I don't know what that means, but let's take a look at it. Bouge RV has the bare wires. I don't like buying those, but that's 50-foot 10 gauge. I feel like it's going to be hard to find 50-foot 12 gauge just because it's probably like not a good pairing. But 12 gauge is really easier to handle than 10 gauge. The good thing about my 10 gauge setups is they're 50-foot. I don't need to do a whole lot with them. Solar ends 30-foot. That's 8mm. Windy Nation has a lot of options under its belt, and you can see still it has 10 gauge 50-foot. I don't think you're gonna find a 12 gauge 50-foot in the pre-packaged thingamajigs. 40-foot, it doesn't even say. Okay, we got a 12 gauge option here. 20. Oh, wait. Okay, 50-foot 12 gauge. Boom. So Windy Nation got it, and it's $55. That's not bad. Now, 12 gauge can do 20 amps. My Bouge RV panel it's a 200 watt panel. I've been wanting to extend it because right now I have it on like my OG cable, which was like a 10-foot 10 gauge cable. It's annoying to manage, but the options are right here. Windy Nation has always had a bunch of options, so it's there. I have to put a pin in that because I need to think about this. I'll let you guys know where I land, but whether I'm gonna order this cable or not. But I would like to have a little more cable that's a little more easier to use than my 10 gauge. So realistically, what I'm talking about is the fact that I have this Bouge RV panel that I want to hook into my EcoFlow River. My EcoFlow River has been banished to the garage because I have no use for it in this situation that I find myself in now, which is I have the EB3A by the Zone 1. So that one is like an EcoFlow, but with life post. So I'd rather hammer on that. I'm still hammering on this EcoFlow, but put the better battery capacity on that one. But I want to use it to power dump. But right now I have a 10-foot cable on it. Let me switch this view up. Right now I have a 10-foot cable on it, so I can't pull it out further into my driveway without pulling my EcoFlow into it. And what I've been using it for sometimes is to drop that 250 some odd watt hours into my external batteries, my what are they called? Dr. Prepare batteries. Don't last long. It goes for about 30 minutes, but it put 250 watt hours in it or 200 watt hours in it or whatever. So I want to be able to pull it out further. So I thought about stealing, because I bought two Renogy 20-foot 12 gauge cables for two 100-watt panels that I had been having out in the yard. And if you saw on Instagram, I showed something. I showed me like using my clippers. I didn't show me using my clippers, but I talked about my clippers being something that I used outside, because I've been cutting my hair, like trimming, cleaning myself up inside, and then the debris that ends up on my shirt, I like slowly walk it outside and then I brush it off. So now I'm just like, well, why not just cut my hair, like clean myself up outside? Two birds, one power station. Um, So I was using my Jackery for that. And in that video on Instagram, you can go to Instagram to see it, askivesolar. I also show my panel situation. So you can kind of see I have the Renogy white flex panel in my backyard. And then I have the HQST squarish 100-watt rigid panel in my backyard. And they're both on 20-foot Renogy 12 gauge cables. Right? Right now, my 200-watt Bouger panel is on a 10-foot 10 gauge cable. So it does not get the full breadth of the sun that it could get if it was on a 20-foot cable. And I feel played every time, but I'm testing that panel and I don't want to introduce cable length and resistance to it to kind of like cause its numbers to go down. So I've just been keeping it that way. But after I'm done testing it, it will find itself having a more permanent cable to power station setup, where it'll probably end up having a longer cable on it, so I could push it further out into my driveway without having to put my power station out in the elements. Because that 200-watt panel needs to be in the sun more than those two 100-watt panels need to be, because that power station, the EcoFlow, can take in up to 200 watts. Whereas like my Sateki and my Alcatel, the Alcatel is starting to be weird on me with the port. I don't know if my adapter is going bad or the port itself is going bad, which is going to be tragic because it only charges via that port. It has no USB-C bi-directional situation, which is interesting. That's another reason why I like USB-C ports to be bi-directional, because that gives you a second option to charge the device should your main port fail. So the device just doesn't become batteries inside with no use for them. The Alcatel, whenever it dies, that's what's going to happen. I can't charge it no other way but through that port. If that port fails, it's a wrap. And I'll probably give it to some of you guys who are handier with that stuff than me, because I ain't opening up no power station, at least at this level in my technical savvy. So I'm wasting power. I'm still getting the power, but I could be getting power through the 200-watt panel, which sucks because it'll fill that thing up in like 2 hours. It don't take nothing for 150 watts to go up against 286 watt hours to fill it up. So I find myself in a situation where I'm having to manage power stations even more, because my EcoFlow River is so beastie that it kind of shoots itself in the foot because the watt hour capacity is not great. The same thing applies to the EB3A. You put a 200-watt panel on that dip, it's full in a second. 2 hours is full. So rant complete. All right. Hey, you didn't answer my question. You just said, hey, kid, I just want to know, how do you like the Bouger V 200 watts? My bad. I just saw your name in the scroll. So that's why I wanted to say hello. Okay, how do I like it? Spoiler alert, it's like any other 200-watt panel. It's not blowing me away. They said a 9BB is more efficient and better at something, but I don't know. I would be interested if I had like one of those thermal things, or even one of the temperature things that could take the temperature of the panel. I feel like I would be forced to have to see how it performs after being out in the sun all day, if it is indeed pulling more power or giving more power to a power station. But I don't have that capacity. So at this point, it kind of seems like it's just a 200-watt panel. I like the form factor a little bit better because it's a little bit shorter and a little bit wider, but it gets us back to the same conclusion that we've been drawing for a long time. I got a video out there about the Renogy 100-watt panel versus the HQST 100-watt panel, and they both got about 86 watts. I did a comparison video on some of the folding and flex panels, and yeah, that X-Star outperforms everybody. I think the Renogy Eclipse came in second, but all you have to do is to take into account form factor, because that could be important to some people just in how you put your panels together. But if you're just throwing something out in the yard, I mean, it's a 200-watt panel. I get like 140 watts off of it. I get 140 watts off of everything else. So it's just like, oh, okay, interesting. Oh, okay, B3 says he's just now looking at that calculator, so he doesn't know if it's accurate. Do you have two 25-foot 12 gauge cables to connect together? Not 25, I have two 20s. What's up, man? Good to see you. Keep it simple. Good to see you, sir. I'm glad you were able to jump on the live for a little bit. Less stuff, more freedom. Hey, what's going on to you too? Hey, buddy, what's up there? Hope you're doing good today. I am doing fantastic. I needed a day off for sure. Hey, Homewood, Illinois. That's what's up. I have often, because y'all know I'm concerned about, like my people who share the skin hue as me. That's not to say I'm not concerned about my Caucasian brothers and sisters, but I had this thought. It was like, man, can we just collectively, as a nation, whether it's just us or it's everybody, could we decide to just focus on one city and try and fix that city? And Chicago comes to mind, New Orleans comes to mind, DC comes to mind, Detroit, uh, Baltimore. It just seems like those are like the examples that the media kind of parades out when they want to critique poverty. That's better than what I was thinking. Thank you, baby. When they want to critique and criticize, I don't even think it's critique. They want to criticize these things that are remnants of policies that were in place. And I just think about that, like, man, can we just all decide we want to fix Chicago, and just let's try all the things. I'm not just talking about money, but I'm talking about ideas and thought leaders and resources, and not just throwing money at the problem. But anyway, okay, thank you. You are welcome. The UK is overcast, and my 200-watt Eclipse can give me 30 plus watts. Now, let me ask you how you feel about that, Sleeper. Do you find that you hate that it's overcast, or are you kind of like cool with the fact that you're getting power even though it's overcast? I want to see what your answer is. Windy Nation holding it down with the options. So what I'll probably do as it relates to this Windy Nation, remove. Okay, I just need to change what it looks like. I'll probably buy one of these cables. These people are adults. My wife said, baby, if you don't let the people go back to work, y'all grown-ups. Yeah, I should. I'm stopping them from working. They probably working still. You know what I mean? Listening to the ninth in their ear. What I'll probably do, even though I don't want to, because I hate disconnecting stuff for the sake of testing, but sometimes I just have to do it. I'll probably buy this cable, this 50-foot cable. And because I have the Ace Fold and the Alcatel, I'll probably... See, they don't have the same panel situation. But what I was going to say is I'll probably replace one set with a different set. So one will be 12 gauge, one will be 10 gauge. And then I'll just use my voltmeter. Shout out to the good brother Setite for kind of like being there when I had questions, when I was trying to learn it, and him being like, yo, you just need to use your voltmeter and get the voltage readings.
That's enough.
Yeah, you need to get a grip.
Now move on.
What they watching? What are they watching, baby? True. Y'all want me to let y'all get back to work? Because I'm off today. I'm living a dream. So, yeah, I don't see your answer. Sleeper, you still around? I'm curious about that. Let me just say what my answer is. I absolutely love a bright overcast day. I love it. It's not better than a Sunday, But man, I walk downstairs and I'll look at my Alcatel and my Ace Volt, and them dips will be getting like 40, 50 watts, sometimes 60. I'm just like, this is great. This is great. I have a 320 watt Renogy panel, and then I have two 200-watt panels. On a really like overcast kind of darker day, you'll get about 10%. Or when it's raining, you'll get about like 10% if it's bright. But when it's bright and it's cloudy, I get decent power. And considering the fact of where I come from, getting like 45 watts, or I started out with a 50-watt panel, so I was only getting like 36 watts. And then when I got the 100-watt panel for the Bowdens, it was given, I just wanted to make sure that no matter what it was angled at, it would give it the 45 watts that it could take in, or whatever it took in. I think it was 45 watts. So I'm used to, I don't need a whole lot of power right now because I'm running my monitor and stuff like that. I have a lamp that's giving me power. This camera right here, the Canon T3i, which I installed software for, and it uses an old school like not micro USB, mini USB cable. That's powered off of a kit that has a battery that goes into the device that gives it unlimited power. So I'm not dealing with batteries. It's plugged into the power station. My monitor is using probably about 13 watts. This laptop is fully charged, so it's using about 10 watts. This whole situation, and my lamp over here is running off of this dip. It's using 67 watts. So I don't need a whole lot of power. Stacking the power is great, but on an overcast day, I don't have this light on. I don't have this lamp on. I could even not have this monitor on. Or I could. Laptop, monitor, 10 watts, 13 watts, 25 watts. I could work. Got a 200-watt panel in the front. That's getting probably on a good overcast day or bad overcast day, like 20 watts. If that power station is not dead, I'm getting 20 watts. My internet uses 20 watts. I'm good. If I had to really push it and I wanted to watch TV, I could make it work. I could figure out something to get another power station in that zone with an extension cord running. I actually need to put that video out today. I'm gonna put it. I'll probably put it out next week. That's what I decided on, because I put out a lot of shorts this week. But I have a video I recorded about flat cables being nice, and I kind of got back to my roots a little bit, because that's where I started. I had a 50-watt panel, a 100-watt panel going into my Bowdens at different times. I started 50, graduated to 100, and that 10-foot 10-gauge cable, because that's all I could afford at the time. It was only 10 feet. It just got my Bowdens under the porch awning. So I would just run a flat extension cord into my house. And then after a while, I was able to kind of get those power stations into the house during the winter, because I bought longer extension cables or whatever I figured out. So they would sit at my back window. Go watch some of my older videos. I come from very humble power usage beginnings. So when it's overcast, I'm good. I'm good. Downstairs in the basement, if I'm getting 60 watts and those devices are relatively full or even halfway, I could throw a Go Labs or two on both of those devices and just charge that Go Labs up. It's like, boom. Because 60 watts going into a 2,000 watt hour device ain't gonna make no real difference. But if I could put that 60 watts into those devices off of those USB PD ports, then when the sun goes down, I got two full Go Labs R300s. So overcast works for me. I don't be complaining at all. Hey, I appreciate that, sir. If you don't have an amp gauge, that's what you need to get and monitor the amps. The voltage is always going to stay the same, but the amperage is what's going to change. Well, I don't know if I agree with that, because the voltage, okay, I understand what you mean. Unencumbered, the voltage won't change. No matter what the sunlight is hitting that panel, once the wire, the impact that your wire has on your voltage or whatever, the voltage will stay the same. The amps is what influx is. And I'm just deducing that based on things I've seen over the 2 or 3 years I've been into solar. That's my understanding. Me and Set Type were talking about that as well. So the voltage in that scenario will stay the same. The amperage is what fluctuates. So let me get back to your comment here. Yeah, I have a clamp amp meter that I can use, and I know how to use the probes now. Well, I've always known how to use the probes. I just didn't know how to connect them on the first device I had because it wasn't color coded, but now I get it better now. I could even do amperage that way as well. But yeah, I got it. I got it under control. We're gonna figure it out, and then I'll update you guys. Let me make sure there's nothing missing from this situation in my trusty notes. And if you guys don't have any questions, I'll see what these last little things are about. Let me say something. I'm kind of trying to figure stuff out with the channel and the scheduling. To be honest, I'm getting caught in a bit of a bout of perfectionism, and I need to get back to my core of like just simple, straightforward videos. I'm trying to inject other things into the videos, and it's causing me to not create as many videos as I want. I also need to strategically sit down when I record videos to make more than one video. So right now what I'm working on is I need to finally do this Go Labs i200 video, and I'm about to finally bang out this Dr. Prepare video soon. I'm a recovering perfectionist, so sometimes I'll be wanting to like make things a certain way and I overthink it and all that jazz. And I just need to get away from that and get back to doing things simply, which was why I set out to do this stuff on YouTube in the first place. So my bad. The videos have been kind of inconsistent, but I'm still putting content out there for you. I put out a bunch of shorts today. I also put videos out on the Patreon. Those videos are not always behind the support paywall, so you can just go to patreon.com/askivesolar and you can see videos that I have not shared on YouTube because I don't think they fit on YouTube. Or they're not ready to be shared on YouTube because I haven't thought about like a slick thumbnail and title. Like one video that is cool that I put over there is how I run cables into my house. It's nothing life changing. Most of them go into my garage door and stuff like that, or in the window, but it just kind of showing you what's going on with my system. That's on Patreon, but that I don't have, there's no space for that on really YouTube right now as I see it. But I'm trying to figure things out and kind of get back into a groove of things. So I appreciate your patience. Be patient with me. If you see a video from me, do me a favor and just play it. Even if you're not interested in it, play it and let it play all the way through. Or don't. You know what I mean? It's up to you. Steve, what's happening? I have a Jackery 300 and I'd like to use it as a pass-through power for a modem. If I leave it hooked up all the time, will that degrade the Jackery battery? I would say yes. What's up, Wobble? Yes, it will degrade the battery, but no more than I don't know. I almost want to say no more than what they account for, but having it be full all the time, sitting at that top 20%, it puts more wear on the battery than if you have the battery sitting between like 20 and 80. So more is interesting, or degrading the battery more is interesting, but the battery is going to degrade at a certain level period. As I understand it, the more you live in the 20 to 80%, the longer the battery will last because you're not using it, you're not fully cycling it. But when you bought the device, you knew off top you were going to get 500 cycles. So that's from 0 to 100, 0 to 100. Or as some other people will explain it, using the full 200 or 93 watt hours. So yeah, it does, but it's what it's intended to do. You can make it possibly last longer by not living in the bottom 20, in the top 20%. I'm not an expert. This is just my understanding of this. So kind of, but that's my take on it based on the research that I've done up to this point. I could be wrong, but it seems like the consensus is the middle 60% is better to live within. Which is why that EB3A having a UPS feature and the EcoFlow River having a UPS feature is a better situation, because once they get to a certain point, like I don't think the EB3A can do it, but the EcoFlow, you can tell it not to charge past 80%. You can't tell it the bottom part, but you can tell it on the top part, at least the app I have right now. So if you tell it to stop charging at 80%, and it's plugged into the wall, the UPS is going to kick in when you plug it in. And then now it's no longer using your battery, but it's using the wall's power. And the battery is only used when the wall power goes out. So it may be worth considering spending the $200 if you could catch an EcoFlow River on sale to just get that for your modem, or you could just use your Jackery. I mean, it'll be fine. You know what I mean? By the time you start to feel an impact of that, you probably want another device, but you could still use a device. It's only going to degrade to 80% or something like that. Again, that's my thoughts on it. All right, folks. Um, if nobody has any more questions, I don't have anything else to talk to, nor do I have anywhere else to be. So I don't know if Sleeper dipped or not, but I was curious about his thoughts on Overcast. I meant to look at my notes, but I think I did. Yeah, I'm good on my notes. Now, how is the audio during this live? It looks decent. It looks really good. You're welcome, Steve. I'm glad I could help. Thank you so much, Ask, with your knowledge and help in answering our questions. I do my best, man. As the channel continues to grow, questions will be harder to answer, but know that is my intention to always try to help you guys. That's why the channel is called Ask I've Solar. You know what I mean? I love helping people in any realm and way that I could help someone. If I have the time, that's the only limitation. I'll help out. I'm also a technical cat, so every now and then on my social media page, I'll just put out there like, "Hey, does anybody have any technical questions that they need answers to?" Because I enjoy it. Sounds good on the audio front. Thank you. I'll definitely see what it's hitting for in the listen back. It looks like I'm getting good readings here with the microphone where it's placed. This is not even a lab microphone. I just have a wireless microphone kind of magnetized to my chest right here. It's kind of a little twisted up. So I have to let Jason know about that because he has one too. Why can't we all just mount solar panels on the roof of our vehicles? You can. Why can't you? Thank you for taking the time to share and help us all. The audio is great. Thanks. I appreciate that. I know the last time I used the wireless with the microphone, with it sitting right here, the volume was a little lower. I had to kind of really max it out to be able to hear it on my phone. That's typically a little louder. So you will eventually see solar panels integrated on the vehicles. Yeah, that Aptera, Aptera. It's a weird looking car. I can't imagine somebody actually driving that car in any place other than California. Maybe some other places, but it's a weird looking car. But because of the design of it, it's not even, I don't even think they consider it a car. It has three wheels and it has solar panels integrated into it. And there's different packages you can get on it. Have you guys heard of the Aptera? I was just watching a video on it. Yeah, it is. Okay, Wobbles is basically saying the same thing. It is super aerodynamic, which is why it doesn't need. Because what happens with these EVs in most cars is the drag, the wind hitting the car that causes it to need more power. Because this one doesn't have as much drag, it doesn't need as much power to kind of move it forward. So it's an aerodynamic design. It's lighter and all that jazz, and they have solar panels integrated into it. But I don't know. I don't see it. I'm interested in them like how we're gonna move forward with this kind of stuff. But I don't see anybody. I don't see somebody. Well, let's think of somewhere. I can't see somebody in DC driving an Aptera. First of all, DC traffic is crazy, and its people is crazy. We lived in DC for a couple years. Uh, my wife longer than me, but I wouldn't feel. Was it on I-95 or what's the other one? The circular one is like 495. I can't see myself jumping on 495 Ain't no freaking Aptera. It seems like a little like, Cali flat, you got, your neighborhood type of stuff. But Cali's kind of stretched out too. I'm thinking about Los Angeles. Let me put that into perspective because Cali is huge. I watch this guy's channel, John Hicks, from time to time. He's been on YouTube for a long time, but he rides BMX, and now he's riding like electric bicycles through his city in his vehicles. I want an electric bike. I want an e-bike. I think that's something dope. My terrain is not necessarily conducive to that, but I think there's something dope about being able to take a quick trip on sun power. That's just dope to me. I wanted to show you guys the car. Let's see. Let's get back here. Boom. This may not be the most accurate pictures for what it's in because it's in various stages. But that's the Aptera. Can you see that? Can you see yourself driving that through wherever you live? It's a 2-seater. That's some solar panels on it. The Beltway, yeah. $695, $495, $95, yeah. I haven't been back. We haven't been back to DC in years, man. People saying the city has changed so much. I used to live in Northeast, which was decent. You know what I mean? Northwest is like the fly part of the city. So that's the Aptera. I don't see it. I don't see it. I can't see anybody driving that on anything regular. It's like a computer mouse, right? Like that's crazy to me. I can't see it. And I don't know how many places I could see other than LA. I just doesn't seem to fit any metropolitan area, and I also can't see it for any type of non-metropolitan area. So if you live out in the suburbs or something like that, it's like, well, I don't. This is doesn't fit anything I'm used to. Maybe that's my inability to just imagine it, but I don't see it. Let's switch it up here. All right, all right, all right, all right, all right. What's up? I'm wrapping up now. What you got plans? It? Oh, okay, true. I want. I'll end on this. At some point over the next week or two, I want to be able to do a live with my wife here, and on that live we'll just be able to hang out and kind of talk life and maybe a little bit of prepping and the future and uncertainty and kind of some solar. I had an idea of calling it low solar Sundays because I don't want the solar to be the focus, but just hang out. That's why it would be on like Sunday or a chill day. And also I want to be able to launch, and I've been wanting to do this for a while, but she seems like she's kind of getting on board because I was telling her I may have to start doing this myself, where I just have these kind of like random conversations where I sit down and I talk, and then she can kind of just come in and chat and offer her 2 cents, kind of like how Bill Burr's podcast is, where his wife Nia kind of joins him from time to time. I always enjoy when his wife comes around. I can't listen to the podcast as much because he's super profane. Maybe he's slowed down since he has kids now, but I can't listen to it around my kids. So I want to do that too. So in the next like week or two, keep an eye out for like the weekend, us doing something maybe around like 3 or 4. I'll let the people who I know are staples in the community, who I've kind of talked and typed and text with, I'll let you guys know so you can be able to come in and hang out with me and my wife. But I want to have a separate channel where we kind of casually talk about just whatever we want to talk about, just commentary on society and all that jazz. I think that'll be okay. It'll be a fun time. I don't care about the numbers. It may be hard to grow something like that, but I think it's interesting. I think our dynamic is great. And I think that people who are into it will get some benefit from seeing me and her hang out. We also want to do a marriage thing soon, but that one's going to be a little further down the line, where we have specific conversations and topics around things surrounding marriage. All right. I know, right? Me too. Shoot, I've been waiting on us. Wobble said he want one. They even have off-road options. That is interesting. I'll tell you what, the last thing I think, I've been intrigued by Ford has been they've kind of been having these conversations. The CEO or whatever has been talking about trying to really get into the EV space and kind of dominate. They have the electronic Ford Lightning. They've been some interviews where they kind of addressed and talked about this idea of these dealerships kind of overcharging for the Lightning, because the Lightning is a really affordable truck, to say that it can do all that it can do. They have the Ford Maverick, which has been in hybrid, but they may be going EV soon on that one. The truck is a little bit small for me, in my opinion. I could be wrong. I'm 6'1", so I saw somebody standing next to it, and it was really like. But there's no EVs that I find really nice looking these days. People keep talking about the Hyundai Ioniq, and that car is just ugly. And I keep always say, I'll be commenting on these videos like, maybe I have to see it in person, but this car is ugly. It's like an EV, a hatchback type of thing. There's only like one or two Teslas that look okay to me. The rest of them kind of look stupid. Maybe like the Model Y is decent looking, but when I see some Teslas on the road, a lot of them just are unattractive. So if I ever got into a space, like I always say, I want to be able to afford an EV, and I want it to be worth the money. Right now, I don't know that they're worth the money, and I can't afford them anyway. So that's a personal goal for me. What's up, Jake? Have you heard the Delta 2? Yeah, I talked about it a little bit earlier, but I don't know much about it. It's just no, not on this channel. I'm sorry, that's a good question. We will have separate channels. The wife and I will hang out hopefully in the next week or two, just to kind of casually hang out with this community, with the people who want to. It'll be like a chat with, Mrs. Ask Ive or whatever. But we have another channel that we plan to launch about just live or wherever, where we just kind of hang out and we'll talk about certain topics that we want to talk about. And it's mainly for, it'll be for like people who know us personally. And if it gets some traction, then it gets some traction in the YouTuber sphere. But I feel like a lot of people in this community really are fond of my wife, and they like our dynamic. So I'll be able to have some of you guys kind of come over, and y'all can hang out and we could chat and build a better future, right? And then we also have a marriage thing that we want to do in the future. And that one's called First Comes Marriage. It's not published yet or anything like that, but it's conversations surrounding marriage and relationships and all that jazz. Okay. Yeah, I saw a post about that, Jake, the Delta, the EcoFlow Delta 2 or something like that. It's LiFePro now. So I'll look into the future, and we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it. Glad I'm chilling with free AC in the sun and just did a live demonstration. How's the security camera going? I only deploy the security camera at times because I have two cameras that look out into my backyard off top. But I was trying to get something at the ground level at the garage. And I can't really get used to having that there in the way that I want to deploy, because as it gets cooler and then winter comes, we use our garage a lot, which is going to kind of change things for my solar panels as well. We'll see. Less stuff, more freedom. Okay, so it's not a matter of why I can't, but a matter of why not. I'd love small and powerful panels on certain vehicles. Yeah, it would be cool. Even if it was just the implications was just to be able to do stuff when you were just out and about, and you didn't have to run your car. I mean, I don't think it's like most of us don't drive very far. There's some things that kind of go into place for that, but been married for 45 years. I'll be there. Appreciate you, sir. Solar independent e-bikes are so expensive. Which have you been checking out? I haven't started researching it yet. I just love the idea that I could possibly get out, jump on a bike, and get somewhere, and it was all off of the sun. Okay, gotcha. What's going on, T Webster? T Wayne, it's been a while. I was just thinking about you maybe about 3 or 4 weeks ago. No, I haven't seen you in a while. How are things out there in Colorado, I believe? Y'all doing okay out there? Hopefully all is well. Okay, you're still working on the camper, emergency house power, solar, and all that stuff. Man, if you have any questions and I can help, you know what I mean? You know I'm here. All right, go. All right, guys. Y'all be beautiful. And I'm out, to quote Henny the Business. Y'all have a good day. Till next time. Maybe we'll go live again soon, since I haven't published a video this week. I was trying to publish a video this week, but it ain't happening. All right, later.